Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, the state of Missouri is looking to establish a patriotism class while at the same time they're limiting Black history. This is the next state that is following the Florida lead. Florida lead of fighting against history. We'll break it down for you. Also, we'll talk about NASCAR racer Lewis Hamilton, who refuses to stay silent in spite of a new policy in racing that says that drivers cannot speak out on religious or political issues. We'll share with you what he had to say around that situation. Also, folks, can we talk about the latest with Damar Hamlin? How he had worn a jacket that some call was blasphemous. It was about, it had the face of Jesus in an artistic way, and people are saying that doesn't work. I'm asking the question: should sacred images be commercialized? Yep, we're going to talk about that, and I got something for you as we close out the week celebrating Black men and boys. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in as we're streaming live on Black Star Network, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, on Amazon News. So thank you for checking in. All right, folks, we got a lot to talk about, so let's jump right in. First and foremost, let's talk about what's happening in the great state of Missouri, how they are the next state that is looking to fight history. They have now become the latest body to approve limits on what they call race-related instructions, folks. Yeah, on Tuesday of this week, the state Senate passed the Senate Bill 4, which called for the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to create a patriotism class in schools. Wow. Now, before the vote, some Republicans, of course, according to the latest reports from the GRIO, they voiced various concerns about the proposal, which was sponsored by State Senator Andrew Koenig, who is a Manchester Republican, prompting speculation that it could go back to the upper chamber for additional discussion after the vote. Now, this is a big piece because of the fact that we're seeing in the state of Florida, and there are some other states have been discussing about limitations on what should be discussed when talking about Black history this month. So I wanted to have this conversation with my brother, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, and he's an all-around good brother, and he's an activist in the space of race relations and academic affairs, my brother Shinedu Wakorfor. Shinedu, good afternoon, sir. How you feeling, bro?
Good afternoon, brother. How are you?
I'm good. What do you make of this, bro, in the sense of Missouri? They're looking to establish a patriotism class, which opens up the door, Shinedu, for a lot of concern, bro, about what should be taught, what will be taught, the impact it will have on the students and all of that, at the same time limiting Black history. Is there any way that folks can really, and I'm speaking of Black folks in the state, can really do something to change this?
I think if there's going to be a patriot class, they should start with a field trip to the District of Columbia, where they are sanitizing McPherson Square and rounding up those who are suffering from homelessness, most of which who are actually U.S. veterans. So if they want to learn anything about patriotism, they should start there. But on another note, I would say that this is just clear, blatant white supremacy, racism. But to take a step further, this is just another way to kind of sidewind society away from not only the Black struggle, but Black success. This is something that is a hallmark of whiteness. You saw this after the 2008 election. You know, a Black man, he won the election twice. One Senator Barack Obama, who then became President Barack Obama. Then after his presidency, what do you get next? You get the statue of white supremacy that was Donald Trump, almost as if to kind of muddy up what the black man has done. This is just another pitch from the white playbook, and I'm not surprised. And I do want to just underscore that when you get rid of Black history or AP Black history, and then you subvert it for patriotism, this is also another way that white people are not accountable for what you did, because you can be a patriotic American and still be accountable for the woes of yesteryear.
Oh, no doubt, bro, no doubt, and I love the way you said it. You can be patriotic and still think about and be held accountable for those woes. My concern is like we're having these conversations now, right? This is Black History Month, and you know, schools. This is February, so schools will be ending in the next probably 4 to 5 months. My concern is really looking forward to the next school year. You know, how do we make it? Because it's a hot topic right now, but curriculums have already been set. So we're really talking about for 2023, fall 2023, moving forward, what this situation looks like. Do you foresee, and you've worked in these spaces in academic affairs, you worked in the spaces of organizing students. What do you recommend moving forward over these next few months, how parents and Black parents should respond? Or should Black parents just take those students, their sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, grandsons, and granddaughters out of those schools and start looking for schools that speak to their values and to their belief system?
See, and this is the difficulty here, because it's a twofold response. Because
right.
On one case, I do believe that Black folks should be educating their children with other Black folks who will speak upon their experiences and know of their experiences. But on the other hand, if we leave these schools without, Black folks or brown folks, then where is the socialization, right, of society and of different people? I think what this is for me is oversight. There has to be more oversight as it pertains to the Department of Education, and more importantly, oversight on these governing bodies of governors. And because I said this a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago when DeSantis did his attacks on the LGBTQ community, I said, and DeSantis being Florida, I said, if this works, the cavalry of the other Republican governors will do the same. And we're seeing that same strategy here. So I don't think pulling a child out of that school will be the solution, because then what you do is you create a cesspool of that hate to build in that misinformation. I think what makes education great is when there is a challenge of realities and a challenge of opinions with facts.
Right, absolutely. Let me go to my crew, hear what folks got to say. Yo, folks, make sure you post your your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Black Star Network, again on Amazon News. Chris Big, my guy, Chris, you checked in and said, look, just like Florida and Mississippi, there are no muscle moves Black folks can make politically in Missouri, which is why Democrats don't direct significant funds to those states. And that might need to change right there, Sinead. That would definitely need to change. But what do you make of that? If we can't flex our muscles politically, then what happens next?
I don't know what happens next, but what I will say, and this is why this is very important, what we do need to get to the South is we need to get one of those infrastructure bills passed to get that broadband. This is why that broadband is important, because I've said this on the show before. The only way folks can get educated is by having the options. We need faster internet down there, and that's what all of those Congress folks and senators are trying to prevent, because they want to keep the folks docile, keep the folks meek. There needs to be faster access to education, so at least people have a fighting chance to use the internet, to see other options, to be able to research the things that they're looking for. I don't think stopping funding, I think we have to be very, very careful in the stopping of funding, because I feel like if they stop funding, what these governors will then do is redirect funding or subvert funding one way or another from another probably very important institution that is needed in those states. I just think in this day and age, when you look at, after Brown versus Board of Education, it just shows me that states have a little bit too much power, in my opinion, where that something like this could even happen. Because I remember when the Department of Education would make their recommendations to the state of Florida, it was almost like they were advising rather than demanding what needs to be done, because the truth cannot be optional per state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Janelle checked in. My sister, you said if every Black and brown person could afford to pay taxes for public schools for the masses and also educate their kids in other institutions, they probably would. But that's not the social contract. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's not the social contract. Here's the thing, and then we got to take a quick pause, but the thing is, I think there needs to be a very, very important conversation that we need to have within our community, Brother Shanadu, about alternative education. I mean, we're seeing stories, folks, each year, right, about how education. I mean, I'm speaking of public education and the traditional schools that we are currently set up in. Each year, there are stories that is showing that this educational system is on the decline. Now, that's not taken away from the fact of teachers and staff and community and all of these things. But I'm talking about, look at these policies. And if you're in any state, from any state that you're currently in, look at the educational policies of your state, of your home state, and see how they feel about certain things. And more importantly, how those resources are allocated, where those funds are going, and what the curriculum is. And we have to figure something else out. There cannot be, we just continue to send our children to these schools, and they become like, quote unquote, killing fields, where they're just being dumbed down. They're not feeling empowered. They don't learn their history, right? There has to be another component. And Brother Shanadu, very quickly, there has to be another component for us as community members, as parents. Like, we have to fill in the gaps of this, of what the education is not, presenting and teaching to our children. So there's a lot for us to think about here. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, we'll continue the conversation about what's going on in Missouri and so much more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the state of Missouri, the next state in this effort to fight history, where now the state Senate has decided to vote on a bill to create what they call a patriotism class, as well as limit what information, certain information from their teaching of Black history. Now, we've been talking to my brother Sinedu Wakwofo, one of our culture crew members, about this effort and the implications that it has on Black children and the community at large. And I'm putting it out there, like, we really need to have a different conversation, you know. At some point, I'm like this, brother Sinedu. At some point, when is enough enough? When do we say, you know what, we can't keep going down this road? At some point. Now, I know that a lot of these school districts, they have a lot of Black and brown students, a lot of Black folks. So, you know, we would really need to have a viable alternative solution to this issue, right? Because this just can't keep going, man. Like, year in and year out. When is enough, brother?
Right. And that's the thing. I think what's really important here, what I try to do, at least in my work, is to explain the humanity of what we're asking or what we're requesting. It's not niche to Black people. It's very clear to Jewish people that you know, what Hitler did in Germany and so on and so forth, and then moving through Poland. But it doesn't mean that now in Germany they don't teach what took place. You teach it, you build museums, you don't act like history didn't take place. And you can still teach about it, and you build from a sense of reconciliation from there. What I think is very, very, very dangerous is that there is this idea that, you know, white folks, Americans in particular, they have this cognitive dissonance as if now they're the victim, and that this is unpatriotic to be quote unquote woke, which is a weaponized word by white folks. And now it makes them, like, their children are growing up not feeling good about themselves, and they feel like they should hate white people. And I always say to them, they can feel that way, but I can assure you that Black people, regardless of how they feel, they're waking up a target of America. And
Right.
that is just facts, and that is just statistics. So we got to kind of normalize that what we're requesting isn't niche to Black. It's niche to anybody who has been colonized, anybody who has been done wrong, that the history should be told and it should not be ignored.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me go back to the crew, hear what folks got to say. Folks, post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Black Star Network. All right, let's go to Chris Woodruff. Chris, you said it is the ultimate responsibility of the parent to educate. Fact. But here's the other part about it. This is what I'm about to describe is what we as parents go through. Yes, you do want to educate your children. You want to expose them to opportunities to help them learn about history, but you got to work. You might have more than one child in the household. You might be a single parent in the household. You know, the time constraints to just for the day, from dropping the children off, picking them up, taking care of school, and all of these other things, they're going to be weighing on you. And then come the weekend, if you got to do stuff for the house, you got to do stuff for yourself and for your business and all of these things. If you could throw in a cultural event for your children, I mean, this is the schedule of, I think, a lot of parents, Brother Sinedu, when they trying to figure out how to get their child into a space. Now, parents can make way for their children, but at the end of the day, unless you have your child enrolled in some enrichment program, unless you have your child enrolled in some after-school program or some weekend program, you know, it's another demand on parents, and particularly for Black parents, when you're trying to keep all the balls in the air. What do you say when you talk to parents and when you talk to you know, especially younger parents, about trying to make sure that that level of consciousness is there, but at the same time they have those other demands?
I tell younger parents and older parents, and I tell my parents as I grow older and figure these things out, that, you know, when we look for jobs as young professionals, we look at all these qualifications and do they have this benefit and that benefit. We need to do the same when we're looking for housing. let's make sure that we're in communities with people who are like-minded. And I say that because if we are around folks of our culture, then these enrichment programs, let's say you can't make it, maybe your neighbor, who is also another young Black parent, could take her kids and your kids, right? That's that community connectivity that we once had in the 70s, 60s, 80s, prior to the quote unquote war on drugs and mass incarceration. I think it is very vital that we continue to educate and put our children through programs that are representative of our culture, but not in protest. We need to do it because we like it. Like, this can't be yet another thing that once the opposition or the white man or what have you does something that we now come up, oh yeah, let's protest Gucci and let's now wear black. Because that's why those things wear off, because we're only doing them in response to someone else. We need to do them as an initial thing that we believe in. And that might beg the question for us, how much do we actually believe in this? Do we really care about what we're talking about, or do we only care about this Black history and these Black rights when they are questioned?
Absolutely. Great questions. Great questions. Let's go to Real Brooklyn. Real Brooklyn, you checked in and said it's never going to be enough for Farajii. We are the youngest nation on this planet. We have far to go, brother. Well, I agree with you. The only thing I have to disagree with you is that Black folks are the oldest group of people on this planet. We are the oldest. However, because of the breakdown of who we were, our culture, our belief system, because of transatlantic slave trade, you know, that has put us at the bottom. But we really are the oldest. We are the dominant culture, or dominant people, excuse me, on the planet, on the global level. Now, here in America, we're not. We're not. So we have far to go, but I think that's the point of this, having this conversation, is that we have to see ourselves in a different space. I think too many times, Brother Shanadu, that we've operated from a space of reaction, like you mentioned, reactionary, retaliating, coming from behind type of thing, versus seeing ourselves as, no, we're out front. We're out front. We're leading the way, and I'm talking about Black people in America, folks. We are actually leading the way in shaping the culture of this country more than any other group of people. We are the trailblazers of civil and human rights in this country more than any other group of people. It's because of our suffering that someone else finds life. Y'all ride with me on this one? Y'all hearing me now? It's because of our suffering that another group of people is able to find life and preservation of life and to find their way in this country, because of our suffering. Because they looked at our history, they looked at our struggle, they looked at our pain, and they said, well, we got to make a different move. But they haven't undergone the same level of indoctrination. They haven't undergone the same level of all that we have gone through to break us down. A lot of folks that are coming across the waters, they still have a sense of community. They still have a sense of, we lost all of that. So we're in the discovery phase. We're getting much further along in that respect, brother, Real Brooklyn. But we came here knowing nothing, broken, and we're still trying to recover 450 plus years later. So, you know, we got to put our struggle in context and where we sit in this thing in the proper context. I want to continue to get your thoughts, folks. Continue to post your comments as we have this. There's a part of this, folks, and Brother Shanadu, there's a part of this that speaks to the whole parental thing, parental rights, because there are a number of states that are actually looking at empowering parents to determine what the curriculum should be. And I wanted to kind of get your take on this, because in this particular bill, it says that it contains, let me make sure I'm saying it right, that when it talks to parents will be able to create a portal where they can look at the syllabus and start to determine which classes or which part of the curriculum they want their child to be exposed to. And I'm wondering, and I get it, education in this country is not perfect, right? But one of the reasons, like when you're talking about some of the fundamental ways to teach children, like you're putting a lot of power in the hands of people that don't necessarily always know how to teach children. I mean, let's just keep it real. Everybody that parents is not necessarily the most informed, the most knowledgeable person or the most knowledgeable parent. So when we open up that door where parents can start to say, you know what, I don't want my child to learn this, I want them to learn that. What are the consequences that could come out of that?
I think if you want to see the consequences that can come out of that, I can give you a future cast of what that looks like. Just take a look at our House of Representatives and our Senate, where you can see two human beings educated maybe in our United States system, whether it be public or private, went to a four-year tertiary institution, maybe got an advanced degree, but will argue over things of fundamental, where opinion is being pushed further than fact. Simply because maybe one was taught factual information and one was taught opinionated information and how to argue opinionated information as fact. And that's where we are right now. And there's a deep danger. We can't sit here and delineate what exists and what doesn't, what is real and what isn't. And if we are going to go down that route, let's do it a whole 360 in the inclusion of not wanting to have certain things. Let's not teach math either, right? You know where math comes from, right? You know who created math, correct? Let's do that, right? But I think it's this pick and choose. It's this a la carte education that I think is very dangerous, where we are leaving out very vital moments. And for kids to be young, they'll develop as adults, and we know it's easier to teach kids than it is to train adults. What then happens is when they become adults, and even if you bring the facts to them, it becomes hard for them to believe. And I think folks need to focus on that. Look how hard it is to believe. On January 6th, 2 years ago, there is not a debate on what we saw. We know what happens, but a portion of why folks are denying it is because that opinionated education, where what you see is not what you saw. That's dangerous.
Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Let me get some more comments from the crew. Truth is power. You say the reason why the civil rights movement was so powerful is because there was solidarity and togetherness. And when one voice spoke, all backed them up. We won't even get out and vote. Well, let me just say this. There wasn't always solidarity in the beginning. What we've seen with the civil rights movement, and Brother Sinead, you can certainly, chime in on this, that everybody thought that everybody followed Dr. King. There were so many fractions of the movement, right? But one thing, I think the common theme for everybody was that Black people are hurt. Black people are feeling oppressed. Black people are not making the type of progress that we need to make. And that's okay if we're coming from different spaces, but we may not be able to get behind one person. We already been talking about this. We say Black folks aren't a monolithic group of people, right? So we just got to respect that. There might be groups of people that we're behind, but whoever is standing before us, wanting to serve us and be the next leader or striving to lead us somewhere, then we just have to take them through through that process of trying to vet them to make sure that they meet those standards that we want. Now, to the point of the voting, I think Sinead do that. I mean, look, we've been voting for 50, 60 years. We act like we never voted. You know what I'm saying? It's not like Black folks don't vote. We do vote. We're just tired of the options. I am. I'm not getting the options that I really want. So you want me to keep voting. And what is that keep voting for? Out of a sense of fear that, oh my God, if we don't vote for this person and that person gets in, the country is going to go under. I mean, we came from chattel slavery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a condition worse than that.
Yeah. And think about the point that we're actually discussing about parents who can choose and remove things. That's just like our system. We're voting on a very limited basis of candidates. Limited plethora of difference. Very
that
small.
Are not even candidates that we have put before us. These are candidates that come out of the machines of the political parties.
There you have it.
So they're not even candidates that we're like, all right, we got a couple of considerations. We got this guy, this sister, this brother, blah, blah, blah. We're not even talking about that. These are candidates that are fabricated, manufactured, and spit out on the conveyor belt of our political system. And then we're like, you have a choice. But they came from the same places.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to have to take a look at this. But here's something I think that is important for us to consider. According to the reports, at least 42 states have already approved or proposed legislation incorporating limits on discussing race affecting teachers and their learners from kindergarten through college, and Florida is among those leading the charge. 42 states. How many states are there, Sinead?
50.
50.
42 out of 50. That's
a lot
high
of
number.
Would you say, bro?
That's 42 out of 50 is more than 75%.
42 states that have already approved or proposed legislation incorporating limits on discussing race. We got some work to do. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about the importance of speaking out, how NASCAR driver Lewis Hamilton is saying, nope, I'm not keeping my mouth shut, even though a new policy for racers have said you can't speak out on political or social or religious issues. We'll break down that story for you. Stay with us. That discussion is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Wanted to switch gears just a little bit for us to talk about the latest trial of NASCAR driver Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis Hamilton is a black man who has been highly vocal about a number of social and political issues, and he has used his platform as being a black man in a predominantly white male sport to bring attention to these issues. Now, according to a new policy that's coming from the brass of NASCAR, they're saying that drivers can no longer speak out on political, religious, and personal statements. Now, this is some new rules that were introduced by the FIA, which is the Federation Internationale de l'Automobile, the FIA, that came out in December. Now, the seven-time world champion, he was speaking out at he's been speaking out at a number of issues, but he was talking at this Mercedes 2023 car event for this upcoming season, and he had a response to this new policy. Take a look here, folks, of what he had to say. He said, nothing will stop me from speaking on the things I am passionate about. The sport has a responsibility to speak out and create awareness on important topics, particularly as we are traveling to different places. So nothing changes. The FIA updated its international sporting code banning the display of political, religious, and personal statements unless previously approved in writing. Drivers who do not comply by the rules risk both financial and sporting penalties. Let me bring my man Shanadu back into the frame on this, folks. Shanadu, when we're talking about speaking out, when the institutions that we are employed by say, keep your mouth shut and drive, or keep your mouth shut and dribble, keep your mouth shut and do all these things, right? You know, at this point, I feel Lewis Hamilton on this, but now we're also at a point where we got to go to war just to express ourselves. I mean, go to war with our employer just to express ourselves. You work in HR. How do you create a policy that allows people to express themselves, to speak out, while at the same time protecting the integrity of the institution where it doesn't become this controversial space?
Yeah, we just got to address whiteness, y'all. Because I know it may sound like a broken trombone or something, but that's really what it is. Because if you think about what they're saying in, let's do some math together. Think about what they're saying in NASCAR, right? And you make that divisible, right, by the greatest position in the world, which is the presidency, which when he talked about grabbing folks by the pussy and stuff of that nature, it was referred to as locker talk. That was acceptable to elect a president, but you're worried about football players kneeling and now NASCAR drivers speaking and even basketball players dribbling balls. I think what I've said before many times is this is a beautiful country. It's a beautiful product, but you got to read the fine print. There is a lot behind that freedom of speech. It's not quite freedom of speech. It's an idealistic version of speech, especially if you're white, rich, and male and heterosexual. I'm not sure what this policy is supposed to set, but in an HR situation, it has been my experience that when folks try to protect folks from saying what is their truth, what is their experience, it is yet another way of subduing. You see the same forms of white supremacy because, yes, the company matters. The company's opinions matter and the company's integrity, it does matter. But when you're doing things that are damaging to the nomenclature of that company and its people, then they should be able to have a voice to say something without repudiation. And I think what they're doing in NASCAR, especially in a place where there's not that much diversity, is that they are doing a cover your ass. They're preparing for what they know will be the inevitable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Real Brooklyn, my brother, you checked, you corrected us. You said Bubba Wallace is NASCAR, Lewis Hamilton is Formula One. So we're gonna make that correction. And I appreciate you, brother, y'all crew, for correcting me. Sometimes we get so many details, so your correction makes a world of difference. So thank you, Real Brooklyn, for making that known. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Shanadu, it's like we're seeing more and more attacks on this idea of freedom of speech. And this is why I wanted to bring this to your attention, bro, to get your take on it. Because we're in a country that has become more and more afraid of people saying something wrong or people speaking out against wrong and injustice. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like it's slowly coming out of something out of Hollywood or out of some dystopian novel where folks are going to have to limit what they say. And here's how it plays out. We see this on the mass level of what we're seeing with Formula One, Lewis Hamilton, and how it trickles down to even in our interpersonal relationships, we got to feel like we got to be silenced. So when does the human being, when does the person, whether they're black or white, Asian or Latino, when can they truly express themselves? When can we learn, instead of trying to limit, trying to block, why don't we learn the proactive way of resistance of trying to teach people to have constructive dialogue around these issues versus like, oh, you can't say this, you're going to get canceled for this. Like, no, we need to talk about it. But we can talk about every issue if we have certain rules and guidelines that will lead to constructive dialogue. And I'm not understanding, bro, why it's the first response to any type of words that somebody has. Oh, I don't want to listen to you. You need to be blocked. You need to be canceled. I don't understand this at all.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite attorneys and a co-host on The View, Sunny Hostin, she says it best. It's not about cancel culture, it's about consequence. There are certain things that are consequential, certain things that we say that evolve over time. You just don't use the word colored anymore because there's consequences to that word. We don't say that anymore. We have different terms and so on and so forth. I think my major issue with this nation is that in our growing process, folks don't allow the actual room for folks to grow because you can't even say what it is you're trying to grow from without complete annihilation. And a lot of times when you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist because they'll say that we didn't know or they didn't know. And
right.
I just there's no perfect way to do this, but the best way to do this is to not censor, is to be able to hear what people are saying and correct them with consequence. But to just now try to shut down and shut off people's speech, and I say people's because it's not everybody, it's specific individuals, that we're putting this towards, it just makes this country not as free. Again, it's identifying as a democratic, but it's actually showing signs of some type of dictator or autocracy.
Let me ask you this question, and my brother, Real Brooklyn, you bring up this good question, and I think it's a very viable one. You said the problem, Real Brooklyn, this is what you said. The problem is not everyone has constructive dialogue. I prefer for sports figures to not have personal views. When did we start holding sports figures at a higher standard than politicians? My only pushback on that is I think that everybody needs to be held to the same standard, for one. And I think that, look, all this stuff is going on around us. The days of trying to turn a blind eye to all of this injustice, social change, racial justice issues, I think those days are long gone, Real Brooklyn. I think that, and especially if you are a Black sports athlete, you are a Black performer, you got to say something. You have to say something. How are we going to, how can I'm going to use Michael Jordan as an example. He was one of the guys, of course, he's on the top of the echelon in terms of the basketball world and the sports world, but he didn't say anything about the killings during the time when he was playing ball, whether it was in Chicago or in any other country. He didn't talk about the political unrest. He didn't talk about, economic disparity. He didn't talk about those things, right? And look at what happened. I think that there should be some, and this is just me, Real Brooklyn, so y'all can disagree with me or not. If you are Black and you want us to spend money to see you play sports, to see you perform, hey, I need you to say something. Use your platform too. Don't ask me to spend money and then you're going to put out messages, or you're just going to continue to dumb down the people for a couple of hours and then be like, yeah, but support my lifestyle, my lavish lifestyle. And you're not really adding to what was going on in the country. You're not really adding to the conversation. I think those days are over, bro. What you think, Sinead?
I remember the wise words of Malcolm X.
Come on, bro.
He talked very clearly about we have to be careful of uplifting these public figures. And he was way ahead of his time, because we see this with influencers now. When something happens, is everybody, and this is why fact becomes optional. When something happens, we're asking non-subject matter expert questions. And it's dangerous because, I don't go to my electrician for medical information.
That's fine.
And I think everybody should speak up just as an opinionated thing, right? But I think when we don't hold people accountable, because yes, Michael Jordan couldn't do a lot because he makes money and all this good stuff and that, but we spent so much time talking about Kyrie Irving and the impact that he made for not taking the vaccination or for doing that video and this and that. But yet and still, when you look at the people that, I hate to say it, that matter, the ones who can make laws, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who said things that are, in my opinion, or in the opinion of the definition, are national security concerns, and can still sit in the same seat and make laws and grill people in the Senate. It makes you wonder. So although there is a power dynamic there, I definitely agree. I think we as human beings need to be careful that, as influential as these people are, the ones we need to worry about are the ones who signed up on the job to make major differences.
Here's my only pushback on that.
Okay.
When we think about those who did stand with us, I think this is not necessarily uplifting the voices of those public figures as if they are the wise among us. But I do think that it is a great sign of solidarity. I remember when you think about during the civil rights movement, when Marvin Gaye or Jim Brown or James Brown, or when you had Muhammad Ali, especially when you had these public figures, right, who were speaking out on what was going on at that time, there was a sense of unity that regardless of how big my star may shine, at the end of the day, I'm still one of the links in the chain of my people. That's why Muhammad Ali is always going to be seen as the greatest boxer, because he humbled himself to feel the pain of his people. That's why the God bless him to be revered the way he is. The same thing, we can go down a line of great athletes and performers and things that who are revered among us because they understood the struggle. Because it's just simple. It doesn't matter who you are, but no one person can rise above. And this is something that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about. No one person can rise above the condition of his or her people. So no matter how great you might have a Jay-Z or an Oprah or whoever the case may be, there is a sense that at the end of the day, if you're talking about that level of solidarity, if you really want to get Black folks feeling like we are all in this together, then you're going to need to have a Bubba Wallace, a Lewis Hamilton. You're going to need to have these voices. You'll be like, damn, man, I mean, we are in this together. It's just a sense of solidarity. It's not like, oh, your voice is much more powerful than my voice. We're lifting our voice together. A chorus sounds the alarm much better than a solo artist. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like there's a place for that.
And I agree. And I think in that exact analogy, I just think that in that way, I agree a chorus sounds better than a soloist for as long as that chorus is singing the same song.
Right.
Because what becomes dangerous is, and I say this all the time, if you're not down to go down like Colin went down,
right,
it becomes very dangerous where you talking the hot stuff and then tomorrow it's, oh yeah, my bad, I'm sorry.
Right.
That also takes away. But you're absolutely right, and no person can rise above the condition of their people. And it's interesting that everybody you named, focus on one thing that connected everybody that you named. That was pre-1980. Something about that time.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that those names, yes, we have the Jay-Z's and all that, and I'm not saying that Jay-Z's a bad person, but do you notice how those big names are not revered today? It's hard to make a big name today like they once were. I wonder why. And there's access to more money and there are more of them. But I wonder why that is different. And that's a topic for another day.
I think that's a great point. I think that's just because of the spirit of the times that we were living in. You know what I'm saying? Like back in the day, we knew who were against us. You know, it was very easy to be like, oh, you know, this white person, this white governor, this white politician, this white police officer. Nowadays, it's not the same. You know what I mean? When you have black police officers beating a black man up, now your mind got to attune to that. You got to check yourself. You're like, damn, it's not just about skin color. It's about mindset, right? It's about the thinking. It's about the systems. So, you know, it's a little different. The struggle is nuanced in that respect. And that's why I think, to your point, it's a little harder because you got today, you have multimillionaire black folks that are talking about the struggle in some way, shape, or form, but they're still, their foot is still in the spaces of multimillionaires, right? Where a lot of us may not be in those spaces. And we have to even push back on that. Like, just because you have money doesn't mean that automatically makes you qualified to lead us. It just doesn't work that way. You have money for your respective talent and skill, but that doesn't mean that you're qualified to be out, because guess what? The leaders of the people were never rich.
That's what I was about to get to. Because
the leaders of the people were never rich.
It's the money.
Civil rights leaders weren't rich. They ain't live out no big mansion out here in Calabasas. They lived among the people. So it's not about your riches. It's about your thinking. It's about where your heart is. So, you know, it's just that type of thing. And I think, to your point, very quickly, as we wrap up this part of the discussion, to your point, it is something different, but we can recreate the spirit of that moment if we just say, you know what, let's be on the same page about this. And we got a lot of black performers, artists that are on that page, but we have to help them to connect the dots, man. They know they need to do something, but we can't be at odds with the ones that have the money. Matter of fact, we gotta not be at odds with them. We gotta partner with them to direct that money to the stuff that is happening on the grassroots level. That's the only way I see it, bro.
And Farajii, in order to do that courageous thinking, because I like to tie two things together, that's in order for folks to be thinking courageously, they need to be educated courageously. And that's why we shouldn't be picking things out of the education system, because you miss out.
That is it. Absolutely. My brother Shanadu, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, bro. And I truly, truly appreciate you for being with us this afternoon. Thank you for being so good for the culture, brother.
Thank you for having me, man. See you soon.
Absolutely. All right, bro. Folks, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about sacred images. Should they be commercialized? This comes out of the space of what Damar Hamlin wore to the Super Bowl. I'm going to break down to you what happened, how people responded to his jacket, and, of course, to get your thoughts on it. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning into The Culture here on the Black Star Network as we get embark on our second hour. I want to take a minute to all of our watchers. If you're watching right now, it's a stream on news, Fire TV, Roku, welcome to the show. I want to let you know that you can certainly continue the conversation, as we are a Black digital space where we're having relevant conversations. So make sure you do your due diligence and check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Folks, blackstarnetwork.com. Your support for this space means everything. Financial support, sharing what we talk about, and so much more. You can download the app right on your any device, whether it's your iPad, your tablet, whether it's on your cell phone or on your laptop or on your desktop. You can download Black Star Network for free on any device that you have. And guess what, folks? When you download that app for free, you are actually adding to the voices and adding to the community that we're building. And here on The Culture, you'll be a part of that great, great community of My Culture crew, where we like to dialogue and talk about issues in a very, very important and culturally relevant way. So your support means a lot. Again, make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com. Also, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms at Black Star Network on IG and Twitter. And also follow yours truly, Farajii Muhammad. You can follow me, folks, right there on Twitter at Farajii, as well as on IG at The Real Farajii. And I would love to connect with you. All right, let me go and have this other conversation, something that I thought and I saw, and I was like, you know what? This will be a great discussion as we close out the week today to have about images, sacred images. Now, I want you to take a moment for yourself to think in your mind some sacred images. What are the things that you hold near and dear to your heart? What are those images, right? If it's rooted in religion, is it rooted in politics? If it's rooted in some personal value, some belief system, sacred images, right? Now, imagine putting that sacred image on display, such as a jacket. You know, I've seen this, and I remember growing up as a child in the 80s and 90s, how people used to wear the American flag. And of course, as a child, you're not privy to all of those big conversations about, you know, whether the wearing the flag or whether carrying the flag or wearing the flag around your shoulders. I remember there was some controversy because James Brown, one of our beloved performers, used to do that, drape the flag around his shoulder at the end of a performance. But now there is even more talk about sacred images, and it's bringing us to the conversation, or to the question is, should sacred images be commercialized? This is the question that is part of the big conversation around what we're seeing with Damar Hamlin. Now, of course, Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills player who suffered from a heart attack while was playing in this year's game, he was able to find, to be resuscitated. He went to the hospital. He's getting better. He's still got some work to do, as he said, but he's physically feeling a lot better. Well, he went to the Super Bowl. He went to the Super Bowl this past weekend, and he wore a jacket, a Kanye West jacket. Take a look at this, folks, with a artistic interpretation of Jesus. Take a look at that. Look at the artistic interpretation of Jesus. Now, that's on the front of the jacket. On the back of the jacket, it was a display of Jesus on the cross. Now, he wears this to the Super Bowl. This is part of the Kanye West collection. And people didn't like it, particularly Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer Adrian Peterson, who felt like the jacket was a form of blasphemy. Yep. Now, on the back of the jacket, again, it depicted Jesus on the back with the word eternal emblazoned above it. And then on the front, it bore, as you can see, that picture of Jesus and the phrase, without end and without beginning, there is no day and there is no right. So Adrian Peterson, who used to play for the Minnesota Vikings, and he's a Hall of Famer, he got upset with Damar Hamlin for wearing his jacket. And this is what he said. Let's put quote one up one here very quickly. This is what Adrian Peterson said at the bottom here, folks. He said, "You should be thanking God, son. This is blasphemy." This was all reported on. This is what was quoted on Twitter. He said, "We all fall short, but come on, man. I find this disrespectful." I want y'all to look at least let's put that picture of Damar wearing the jacket again. And I want you to ask yourself, do you find this to be disrespectful? Take a look at this. Very, very artistic view of Jesus. All right. Now, here's let's post quote 2, please, Lise. Now, look at this. Now, after having a conversation with Damar, then Adrian Peterson toned down his words. He said, "I feel like there are a lot of people, young and old, looking up to you, and with power and influence comes great responsibility." He said, "I apologize for offending you. I just felt offended in that moment as a man who loves and respects our Lord and Savior, Yeshua. After speaking with Damar, I have an understanding that it didn't come from a place of ill intent." Now, DeMar has come on record to talk about this. He recently just released a statement on his Twitter account talking about this. And he addressed this criticism saying this. Take a look at this. Let's post quote 3 for this, Lise. Thank you. He said that after talking with his parents, he said, I understand how my coat could have offended some people. He said, it was never my intention to hurt or disrespect anyone. The coat is abstract art to me. It says eternal, which I am eternally thankful to my Savior. He said, my beliefs and relationship with God is not tied to symbolic images. I will learn from this and continue to walk in love as I always have. Matthew 7, 1-5. So it opens up the conversation about sacred images. What is considered blasphemy? Is this going too far in commercializing this? And I want to get your thoughts on this. Post your comments in the chat. We're streaming live on YouTube and Black Star Network and on Facebook. Do you find wearing something like this, a jacket with Jesus's an artistic interpretation of Jesus, to be blasphemous, offensive? And what should sacred images be commercialized? We are living in America. It seems like, folks, that there are no boundaries to what we will be willing to kind of make money off of, profit from. There are no boundaries to how far we will go to commercialize something. And I wonder, as we look at our culture, is this a good place? Should we have some boundaries? All right, let me get a couple of what you're saying. A couple of the crew members are checking in, and I would love to hear from you. My sister, Lori Parks. Lori, you checked in and said, first of all, that was his choice to wear that. He has that right, but nobody knows the truth, and the true image don't know the true face of Jesus in the Bible. It gives a description of him, just saying. Right, well, certainly it was his choice. The Bible does describe him as being a certain, his certain type of hair, certain type of skin tone, all of that. So we don't know the exact look of Jesus at that time, but it doesn't sound like, for me, Lori, that you are offended by him wearing the jacket that says eternal with an artistic version of what we would think Jesus would look like. So I appreciate you for saying that. Real Brooklyn, my guy, you checked in and said, putting beat marks on a little baby is disrespectful. What you have to say about that, Mr. Peterson? Talking about Adrian Peterson and his situation where years ago he was embroiled in a scandal of being abusive to his child. So I hear you, Real Brooklyn. I hear you. I guess that's why he said too, bro, that we all fall short with the glory. Amen. Amen. Danita. Let me go to Shalinda, then Danita. Shalinda, you checked in. You said it is not disrespectful because what another person does has nothing to do with my beliefs. Hey, Shalinda. Hey, Shalinda. Let's talk about this. And I got a few moments before we take our next pause. But let's talk about this. Why do we get offended? Why do we get so offended when people do what they do, right? Knowing that they have a total different view, perspective, experience with life. And knowing that they come from a whole different place in their beliefs and value system, we get really offended that they don't think like us, believe like us, see the world like we do. We get really offended when they do something that we may deem as controversial. We get really offended when they don't like us. Why is that? It's something about the human behavior. We love to flock to people that act like us, think like us, believe like us, right? We all like, oh my gosh, I feel at home. And it's understandable because, familiarity is a beautiful and comforting feeling. But you know that sometimes differences make things better. Like you can't always be around people who think like you, who do the same thing as you. I mean, that's a very boring existence. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. I like when my friends express different views of things. I like having vivid conversations about, where I can hear from different points of view. That's why when y'all talk to me on this platform and y'all say, Farajii, this is how I think, it's like, good. I don't want you to think like how I think. There can be no real conversation, no real movement of understanding if we're all thinking the same way. That's the thing. So, I mean, I get it that some people might find it blasphemous, right? I really do get it. Because I also am of the belief, folks, that maybe we should have some boundaries on what should be commercialized. If Jesus is supposed to be a reflection of the divine, right? Some believe that he's God in person. Some believe he's God's son. Regardless, he's part of this divine head. Then how do we make sure that we don't disrespect the divine head, not just the image, but really more importantly, the life? You see what I'm saying? Like the life of this man or the works of this man, that we don't diminish it to just being a jacket, or we don't diminish his life and works to a tweet. Like there has to be, again, I don't know how this can be done. But can we have a different view? Can money not always be the motive for us to try to incorporate? Like let's use God and then let's like market God. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's what's happening. That's what's happening. It's like we're taking the things that are supposed to be sacred and then we distort it to the point where they become commercials. Like our values are up for sale. Our belief systems are up for sale. And that's, it's like, okay. Is anything sacred anymore in the culture? All right, look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to continue this conversation because, Patricia, you got something to say. What else we got? Family, you got something to say. And so many more of you have something to say. Let's continue the conversation, but I want you to really think on this. Should sacred images be commercialized? We're talking about Damar Hamlin. We're talking about his Jesus jacket. And of course, we're talking all about this with you. Stay with us. The culture will return right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let me just tell y'all, folks, for all of you who are part of the crew in the chat on YouTube, man, y'all bringing up so many great points. I'm going to try to get to as many as we can. But let me just tell y'all asking some valid questions. All right, let me go back to this as we're talking about this latest brouhaha around Damar Hamlin wearing the Jesus jacket. That's what I'm calling it, the Jesus jacket. Take a look at this here. Let's show that picture one more time for folks who may have forgotten. This is the jacket that he wore to the Super Bowl this past weekend that got people feeling upset and offended that he would even rock a jacket with Jesus being depicted as that. That's a very abstract, artistic view of Jesus. And some people got offended the fact that he wore the jacket where it says eternal. But it doesn't even look like that Jesus is even black. So some people have also got offended by that as well, because it doesn't match the description laid out in the Bible. But I'm asking this question: should sacred images be commercialized? There seems to be, in this day and time, in our current culture, folks, there doesn't seem to be any boundaries on what can be made a profit on. Pardon the pun. We seem to always want to cash in on stuff like, and I'm wondering, have we gotten to the point in the culture where our values, our belief system, for the right price is all for sale? It's all for sale, that somebody can buy how you see the world. Somebody can buy your morals and your values. Somebody can commercialize how you see the Godhead. All right, let's go to the crew, because so many of you are checking in, and I appreciate it. Danita, you checked in. You said, well, what's the difference between white Jesus on the church wall, when that's not his description in the Bible, and abstract art? What's the difference between a white Jesus and abstract art? What's the difference? So Damar Hamlin wears it on a jacket, but we might see that depiction of Jesus every day when we drive past it on a church wall, on some building. And some people say it's blasphemy. I don't know. Maybe the only difference I can think of, Danita, is that you're making money off of the image. Whereas for the church wall, some people believe that that's how he really looks. So the church is not, quote unquote, making money off of the image as much as it is a jacket. That's the big difference I could see. I might be wrong in my understanding and interpretation of the question, but that's the big image. That's the big difference, that a jacket is sold, is commercialized for its style, for its look. It's a product. The church wall is not a product. The church wall is just that. It is a structure that houses the church. So it's like a, for lack of a better word, and I'm not saying this, I'm not trying to diminish it, but it's just saying that the church wall is like a sign. Like, this church is here. So I think that may be the image, that you don't have the church wall duplicated the same way. The church wall isn't leading to you to buy something like this Jesus jacket is. But that's the only difference I could see. Great point, though. Turner family, you say, yes, it is disrespectful because the church has taught black folks Jesus was white and black folks have to wait for the glory of the Lord, but everyone else gets theirs now. So you're pushing back on the theology. You're pushing back on the theology. And you're saying it's disrespectful. And I'm going back to that point of what we saw with the American flag, because some people also put that in high esteem. Now, it may not be you, it may not be anyone else in your space, in your circle, in your network, but some people would say, well, do you wear, if it doesn't not the American flag, would you wear the black liberation colors as a jacket? I mean, is that a form of honoring what that flag or what those colors stand for? You know, and I mean, we see the American flag now on everything, especially coming 4th of July. You can buy the actual flag. You can buy it as a shirt. You can buy it as a jacket. Hell, I've seen it as underwear. So you crapping on the flag. Like, you can buy this stuff. And I'm wondering, does this diminish? Does it take away from it? Like, I don't want to see my flag, which is supposed to be a symbol of sovereignty, a symbol of independence. I don't want you to wear it. You can hang it, but it's not about wearing it. And I don't think even for me to see my religious figures, right, those who I look up to as being as the divine, you know, I don't want you, it becomes this thing, right, this product, this commodity. And I think that if you start to put those spaces, those images in those spaces, right, then there's something that happens in your head where you start to think a little bit less, right? That you start to think a little bit less of what's, what they bring. You don't see them in their proper context. That's just something that I'm thinking about here, folks. Continue to post your comments. Let me go back to what y'all are saying on my crew. Patricia, you checked in and said, we are the body of Christ, Jesus. Artists is sometimes expensive. The comments were great. Right. We are the body of Christ. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that every artist has a right to, they can express themselves as much as they want to. But again, it goes back to my original question, folks. Should sacred images be left off the table when you're talking about, commercializing? It's one thing that you paint a picture of Jesus, but it's another thing that you put, say, if there's like a Jesus logo or something. You got his face or you got his body on the cross, and now it's like a dope logo, and it's part of a company apparel. It's like, and what is really happening here? What is really happening? And I'm not sure if this is the messaging for the jacket, but it's one of the things that I think about is the same way we get mad about glorifying Black people who have undergone extreme stress, brutality, right? We've talked a little bit about that. Like, we are seeing Black families who are kind of put out there as celebrities, and I call them celebrities of Black pain, places that they never thought they would see themselves in, that they didn't choose to put themselves in, but because of the circumstances, they are in that space, right? So we look at Tyre Nichols' family. They are quote unquote celebrities of these levels of, and I'm using celebrities very lightly. I'm saying it in a respectful way of, they are now being known as the family of Tyre Nichols, right? And it's like, I think there is something that we need to make sure that we don't cross the line over, in understanding that at the end of the day, there's still people, a mother and a father still lost their son. Same thing here. Like, we're not going to attach images to death. So we put Jesus on the cross. He died on the cross, and now his death becomes the symbol of something else. So it's like, are we glorifying his pain? Are we glorifying his death? Just some questions, y'all. Patricia, appreciate you for posting. Let me get it. And I want to make sure I'm saying this. Zeta, you posted three main important issues to be fixed in USA. Then America people will be great again. First issue must be fixed. It must make boycott with firearms markets. Second, alcohol must be reduced. Third, stop drugs. You just got a whole platform right there. Okay, I hear you. And I wouldn't disagree with you. I appreciate you posting. Turner family, you posted. Thank you so much. Danita, you posted. Thank you. Janelle, you said, one, thou shalt not make graven image or any likeness. Thou shalt not make graven images or any likeness. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. This is up to interpretation. Sacred relationships are personal, so mind your own business. Well, they are personal. However, we are in the space, folks, that, wearing the jacket, just like for DeMar, it wasn't out of ill intent, but that's his expression of his personal belief. But if you go into a public place where other people can view your personal expression and it becomes offensive to other people, then what do you do? I think this is the ongoing conversation about censorship, about freedom of speech. What do you do when your level of personal expression infringes upon somebody else's level of personal expression? Can this be like a freedom of speech issue? Personal expression? Because you're saying something without using your words. You're saying something. If we wore a shirt that said Black Lives Matter to a public place, to the supermarket, to a baseball game, whatever the case may be, you are telling people this is how you feel. This is your stance. So in a sense, it's like you are directly saying this is where I am. But see, this is the thing. Like, if some white person were to wear a shirt that says, I mean, we seen it, like make America great again. Or if some black person wore a shirt that says make America great again, would you feel offended? See, we're also in the culture now, and I think, Janelle, you can agree with me. We're in a culture where we put like everything out there. Like, remember back in the day, y'all, with the culture where it's like how you believe you kept to yourself? Like, oh, no, I would never say that on public, but how I believe is I keep that to myself. How I feel about issues, how I feel about people, I keep it to myself. Nowadays, the culture is let it all out. Tell people how you really feel. Tell them why you're mad, son. And they have to deal with it. But you can't just go in a space and just impose. You do have to consider other people. And I think this is probably one of the big pushbacks in the culture, in the American culture. People are tired of keeping certain things pent up inside them or thinking about somebody else or being considerate. Oh, now you got to be politically correct and conscious. It's like, yeah, because you're not living in a silo. You're not living among a homogeneous population where everybody thinks the same way. You're living around people who have different views. So you have to be considerate of other people. Let's keep it going. Janelle, thank you so much, sis. Corinna, my sister, you checked in and said, be offended that Bey and Lizzo will remove spaz from their lyrics, but not the N-word. Oh, see, now you're trying to open up another can, Corinna. I can't stand you sometimes. You're trying to open up another can. It's too much. It's too much. But yeah, I mean, that can kind of fall into place. But let's keep it on that. Let's say this in terms of the images, right? When you see something, right, that you may not agree with, do you fit and you say, oh my gosh, that's offensive? And see, here's the other part about it, right? People don't see religion as they used to see religion 25, 30 years ago. There's been a number of studies. I remember a Pew Research, they put out a study some time ago. More people are less likely to subscribe themselves to to a religious institution nowadays than, say, 30 years ago. People say, I'm spiritual, but not religious. So now, even religion is up for interpretation by a lot of people. You know, people say, oh, it's just young people. No, it's not just young people. There are older people who are slowly stepping out of the organized religious structures and are now looking at, okay, how can I still stay in tune with God? How can I study on my own? And all of those things. That's the space that a lot of people are moving in. And there is a very real reason as to why that's happening. So now, when it comes to religious, when it comes to sacred images, these things are up for debate. For real, literally up for debate. Let's go to Corinna. I appreciate you, sis. Marcus, real quick. Marcus, you said Jesus pieces are the same thing, commercialization of Jesus. Excellent point, Marcus. Excellent point, sir. You're right. So when you put the Jesus piece on, right, that must have makes you, everybody believe, like that makes you holier. Like, I am holy. I got a nice diamond embezzled Jesus piece around my neck of a man on his cross. That means that I am one of the chosen. That doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean that at all. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that at all. Would the next question, what would Jesus do? You would want to wear a diamond encrusted embezzlement signature of his death? I'm gonna let that one go. Look, I gotta take another pause. When we come forward, let's get some final thoughts on this. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Getting some final remarks from you, my crew, as we talk about Damar Hamlin and the controversy around the Jesus jacket that he wore during the Super Bowl. And let me just say this, man, y'all are hilarious, but so many of you are asking, I think are asking valid questions, making various valid points. Willie Frazier, Willie, you said that wasn't Jesus, that was SpongeBob Jesus. Looks crazy. It's an artistic version, Willie, you know. But yeah, it does kind of look more of the SpongeBob than anything. You're right. Lana, my sister, you said a person can't even wear clothes anymore without offending anyone. Miss me. Cancel culture is killing us. Adrian can shut up. And I'm glad he wore a Kanye jacket to the game. Represent Black. All right, Lana, I hear you. I hear you, sis. I hear you. T. Hines, you reiterated that point. What about the Jesus piece worn by many? Again, folks, like we're thinking about this stuff from our space, right? But what's the point of it? I've always asked that question because I find that any type of religious, piece that we add to our wardrobe, what do you want people to say? What are you trying to say? Now, we're also in a time in our culture where what you wear says a lot about who you are and how you think and how you see yourself in relationship to the world. So when you wear certain things, what are you saying? Are you saying that you want us to see you in that divine light? And that's fine, because we should all see human beings from a divine standpoint, through a divine lens, through divine coloring. But what are you saying when you wear that Jesus piece? What are you saying when you wear a jacket with an artistic image of what Jesus may look like, right? What are you saying? How do you want people to respond to you, right? Because our culture will make you feel like you have to show up being a certain type of person instead of being that person. I'm going to say that one more time, y'all. We praise showing up being a certain type of person versus actually being that person. Just keep that in mind. Jay, now you posted this comment. I appreciate you. You said, what makes an item sacred? It's all up to interpretation. Some Muslims believe that visual depictions of all prophets of Islam are so offensive that death is warranted. Cartoonists have gotten killed. Absolute facts. You cannot make graven images of prophet, peace be upon him, and others. You're absolutely correct. Because we get caught up in the visual. That's one of the things that we've seen. It's in this culture, and in America, we love the visual. We love to praise what's on the outside of us. But again, what really saying is that, you can wear Jesus, you can wear Muhammad, you can wear Moses, you can wear Abraham, you can wear all that all up and down from head to toe, folks. But if you're not a decent or good human being on the inside, mentally, morally, spiritually, your heart, your mindset, your behavior, your works, what are you saying? What are you doing? Now, we don't know that. I'm not, and this is no shade to Damar Hamlin, but it speaks to this place that we find ourselves in, where we like to put out this view of ourselves, right, in a public space, but in private, it's not consistent. You know what I'm saying? It's like social media in some ways. Social media, it gives us a space to, oh, you're this type of person. I'm that type of person. I don't do this. I don't like that. I'm this. I'm that. And it gets down to what some people would call identity politics. Some people would call it, just putting out this false image of yourself, right, to try to make yourself seem bigger than who you are. And I think that that's dangerous. I think that we don't need more of that. We need more authenticity. And just as much as we talk about that, it's like you can still be authentic and without telling people your religious beliefs, or you can still be authentic without telling people your stand on social issues, right? Can't you? You don't have to be black powered down to be like, to let people know that you love black people. Am I saying something crazy, y'all? Let's see who else we got here. And I appreciate you all for checking in, because this is interesting. This is interesting. My really hope and prayer is that that we can extend the conversation about this very issue. Danita, you bring up a good point. Let's post Danita's comment. Would people have been offended if Versace made the jacket, or was it more offensive because it's a Kanye piece? Now, here's the question about that, and I think this is an excellent point. If a major fashion house were to put out a jacket, right? Say Versace, Louis Vuitton just hired Pharrell to be the second black person in the fashion world leadership. Pharrell took over the spot that our brother, and I'm gonna make sure he took over this. He took over this spot that our brother Andre Talley, who served as Louis Vuitton's men's creative wear director. He took, not Andre Talley, Virgil Abloh, So Pharrell just recently got hired by Louis Vuitton. He succeeds Virgil Abloh as Louis Vuitton's men's creative director. Major position, huge role in the fashion world, because black folks on that level, we're not even existing. We're not even at the table, The appointment is effective immediately, and Pharrell is expected to have his first collection debut in June during Men's Fashion Week in Paris. Now, if Pharrell uses that space and that platform to roll out a line of socially conscious, politically thought-provoking, black-oriented stuff, clothes that has different messaging on it, from words to images, but it's produced by Louis Vuitton, should we push back on it? If Louis Vuitton starts creating clothes with black fist on it, or any symbols that we hold near and dear to us, should we push back on it? Or any religious symbols, should we push back on it? I think, Danita, you bringing up an excellent point, sis. So if we start going down that space, like, and here's why I'm saying this, folks, like, good for the culture. Is this really good for the culture? That we put the struggle of those we love. If you put one of the great heroes and sheroes of Black history on the back of a jacket, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, you got a Baldwin quote on the back of a jacket. You got a picture of Harriet Tubman, A Sojourner Truth. Like, does that take away from the reverence that we should have for our heroes and sheroes? See, that's what I'm saying. This is how deep it gets. This is how deep it gets. Because my great concern is that now our struggle, our belief system is all going to be seen as just pieces of product, commodities that can be commercialized. All right. So that's something that we need to look at. That's something that I think we really, really need to look at. So, Danita, I appreciate you for bringing that up. Because when I saw that piece about Pharrell earlier this week, I was like, I wonder what this brother's going to bring. What kind of imprint is he going to have on creating this the new men's line for Louis Vuitton? Pharrell is a brilliant brother, highly artistic, very creative. You know, he's a visionary in a lot of ways, musically and other spaces. Kanye, we may not agree with him, but he's still a creative, right? So it's like, what do we say is yay and what is no? Pardon the pun. Very, very important. So I'm going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, you know, it's as we look at this situation, I hope that we can at least have some extension. This is just the first of, I think, many conversations that we should have on making sure that our culture doesn't become a product, that Blackness or our divinity or understanding how we see the Godhead, how we see God and how we see the great ones who have walked in the divine space, how we don't commercialize them, try to diminish them and just make them a product and a commodity. There's so much more to this conversation, but I hope that this first part will help us to get a greater understanding for it. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, I got something I want to share with you that was just simply inspiring as we close out the week here on The Culture. Stay with me. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. In today's final moments, I was just really inspired to be on Twitter, and I saw this video of black men and boys. This is a video from the group We Got This out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it's a very, I think it's a beautiful video. Take a look at this. I want you to, at least, let's pray. This is just take a look, listen to this video. It's from We Got This. This is part of a 500 tuxedo event that teaches young men how to be gentlemen, and that there's more to life than the streets. Each boy gets a tuxedo and a haircut, and this is the video of just a short snippet of the celebration of black men and black boys. Take a look.
A community that comes together and will perceive itself as valued. Perceive itself as others that see it. You can also change the community. I am mighty. I am black. I am beautiful.
Big shout out to We Got This. There are so many organizations across this country that are doing the great work of bringing black men, black boys together, having different efforts of redefining the narrative around black men and boys. And so I was just really happy. This event happened like a few days ago, and it was like hundreds of black men in tuxedos and haircuts and just being there in solidarity with one another. And I just thought to myself, this is what we need to see more of. So big shout out to those brothers of We Got This in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I want to invite all of folks to post their pictures. Y'all can send me something on my social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram or on Twitter at Farajii. I would love to see more videos like this. So I definitely would love to hear from you. But this is just a big shout out and a thank you to the brothers that are doing the great work of using their platform, bringing people together, and most importantly, teaching young boys and black men to love themselves again. So big shout out to We Got This. All right, folks, that's going to have to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for being a part of the conversation. I want to thank my dynamic team, Lise, Keenan, Joel, and of course, my control room. Look, if you're enjoying the show and you enjoyed the conversation, make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com, download the app for free, and continue to support us financially and share the content. You can find us again at blackstarnetwork.com. We are streaming live on Amazon News, so if you do have a Fire Stick TV, make sure that you let your friends and family know that we're streaming live on there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And all you got to do is ask Alexa to play news from Black Star Network. Also follow us on our social media platform at Black Star Network on IG and Black Star Network on Twitter. And of course, you can follow me at The Real Farajii on Instagram and at Farajii on Twitter. And I would love to connect with you. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Tomorrow, we're going to have a best of show because of the holiday weekend. So I hope and pray that you have a safe, prosperous, and relaxing weekend. Get some great things done. Spend time with your family. Enjoy the weather if you got some good weather in your neighborhood, in your area. And most importantly, come back to see us next week. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, tonight is Thursday night, so you know it's going to be a dope show. So stay tuned for that. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk to you next week for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.